Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole from the 4th District of Oklahoma, and this is another one of our weekly chats on what's happening in Congress. This has been a very eventful week, both for what has happened and what hasn't happened. In terms of what has happened, the Democratic majority has pushed through a very controversial piece of legislation that will allow committee chairmen to drag the President of the United States into court more frequently. You're going to see a lot more trials, a lot more investigation. A lot of this is unprecedented. It's only twice in history that the House of Representatives has ever sued for possession of documents or to review documents the President of the United States. Once in 2007, that was after Harriet Miers, who later nominated for the Supreme Court, but she was President Bush's general counsel, refused to come down and testify. She was cited for contempt, and the records were subpoenaed, and it happened again in 2012 during the so-called Fast and Furious scandal in the Obama administration, when Eric Holder, after 434 days of document requests which he refused to honor, was finally held in contempt, and Congress went to court to get documents. Now we're moving a lot faster. Nobody's been cited for contempt by the full Congress, although the Judiciary Committee has cited the Attorney General for contempt. We're just, in other words, we're going to litigate a lot with the President of the United States. That's unfortunate because it will make it much harder to legislate, which is actually the main congressional job, but it'll be a very controversial thing. The second thing that was passed, or is in the process of being passed, and won't even be done this week, it'll take this week and next week, is a combination of 4 appropriations bills, including the 2 largest bills, defense appropriation and labor, health, human services, and education appropriation. These 4 bills are about 70% of all government spending. Frankly, they're being passed without an agreement having been reached with either the President or the Senate, so they're not likely to be in this final form. You'll find Republicans voting almost uniformly no until after we sit down and negotiate with the President and with the United States Senate, in which case we come to a deal. I think you'll see a lot of Republican support for it. But until then, this is a part of the process, but it's a part of the process that's pretty partisan and where I think Democratic majority is laying out very unrealistic measures. The thing that didn't happen this week and should have happened is the emergency request of the President for billions of dollars to deal with the intolerable situation on the southern border. Last month we had over 144,000 people apprehended who crossed our border illegally. Over 10,000 of those were unaccompanied minors, that is children or young people in most cases under 18 and not traveling with an adult, or at least an adult that's related to them. Those people immediately are put in care by the Department of Health and Human Services, and it's just running out of money. We literally are within days of them not being able to feed, to house, to protect, to provide medical care for these folks. Now, obviously, they're here illegally, but they're quite often, again, brought in by smugglers, and because they are minors, they're not held legally responsible. But we have an obligation, and it's a shock to me that the Democrats have blocked this. The President's requested this repeatedly. There's been over 15 different Republican attempts on the floor to try and insert the money that we need. I've offered an amendment myself in the Rules Committee on this very thing, and no border security in my amendment, just the money to take care of these young people that were legally obligated. If we don't act soon, we're going to have some sort of disaster. Somebody's going to lose their life. They literally can't process it. So it mystifies me why the Democratic majority will not act. I mean, the Republican votes are there in the House, and I suspect the Senate as well. But in the House, it's going to take the Democratic majority putting the legislation on the floor. We've asked them to do that repeatedly. They've failed to do it. So hopefully by next week, I can give you a better report on that. We'll have finished the appropriations process on these 4 major bills by the end of next week, and that's a good thing. They're not bills I would support in their current form, but it moves them through the process. Once we sit down and negotiate with the Senate, I think we can move these bills to a place where they'll get significant bipartisan support, and hopefully we can avoid a government shutdown in the fall. But again, a very eventful week in Congress, to say the least, and I'm looking forward to perhaps giving you a little bit better news next week.